Hey everybody, MrAyrit here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got kind of a mini solid state shootout. I've done a couple of these in the past. I'll link to those down below. But the two amps that I've got my hands on lately are the Jotunheim 2 from Schiit and the Lake People G111. And you know, they're both, I think I got them both for around 350 325, so they're pretty comparable as far as price goes. But you know, I'm trying to, I don't know, you know, I'm always looking for amps. I'm always trying amps. I can't ever seem to be satisfied in this hobby, so I'm always just kind of seeing what's out there and what's worth the money and is it worth upgrading, things like that. Now previously, kind of my solid state, like clean solid state, is the Magni, the IEMagni here. And you know, I think this is if you're looking, you know, for just a really clean, smaller, cheaper amp, I really think this is a good one to look at. And I like this better than like the 789, than the SP200. So then a lot of those, what's the word I'm looking for? The
20 minutes later.
THX stuff. Man, I was brain farting there for a minute. So I like Schiit's clean stuff better than the THX stuff. And so I wanted to see kind of like the Jotunheim 2 should be their kind of best iteration of that. And then I wanted to compare it to another well-regarded kind of clean amplifier, and that's the Lake People G111. So let's go through I/O real fast here, and then we'll talk sound, of course. So we'll do the Lake People. The Lake People is an extremely well-built amplifier. It just feels, everything just feels wonderful about this amp. It's got, its volume knob is kind of like a stepped, but it feels smooth and just feels super nice. The materials it's made out of, it just feels smooth and just refined, and I don't know, it feels good. It's got a good weight to it. This has two 1/4-inch jacks, no balanced, out on these for headphones, and then it's got a power button on the front. Now on the back we've got balanced in, and we've got single-ended in, and kind of the typical kind of PC power cable type of thing, which I like to have. And then you've got this is your source select, so single-ended or balanced. So there is no pre-out, so you can't use the G11 as a preamp. That's probably its biggest downside, I would say, compared to the Jotunheim 2. So let's take a look at the Jotunheim 2. On the front, you can tell, I mean, this is typical Schiit build, Schiit style for the, you know, the larger format stuff. So it's going to be the same size as, you know, like the Asgard 3, and it'll stack with the Bifrost and things like that. You do have 1/4-inch and balance, 4-pin balance out. You've got their nice big volume knob that feels great. You've got preamp on, preamp off. You've got high-low gain on the front, and then you've got your source select. So if this would be if you had a built-in DAC, which you can get with the Jotunheim, balanced in, single-ended in. So on the back, you can see this thing is just loaded up with stuff, and that's probably the big bonus to having the Jotunheim 2 is just you get a lot of options with ins and outs and things like that, so you can kind of run like anything you want off of this, right? So you got your balanced in, your single-ended in, but then you can do both single-ended and balanced out, so you can have like just like a boatload of sources and amps and things with this, which is I think is pretty cool, especially if you like to play around like I do and you are kind of going through lots of stuff. This would make it easy to hook a lot of different amps and things up and to try out different DACs and stuff like that. So that's kind of a bonus of the Jotunheim 2. It also has just the regular kind of PC power in, and then you've got the traditional Schiit on and off toggle on the back. Build wise, I mean, they're both good. I think I'd give the slight nod to the G11 It just feels so well built. But obviously functionality, I'd give it to the Jotunheim 2. So certainly if you need a preamp, the G11 or the G111 isn't going to work for you. You'd have to be the Jotunheim 2 camp at that point in time. So let's talk sound, since we've gotten through the IO stuff here. And it's really close. Let me tell you, like when you start getting into all these clean amplifiers, you really got to listen for the different like nuances about them, because at first glance, surface level, or on headphones that aren't super resolving, it's just hard to tell the difference between them, to be perfectly honest with you. And even to tell the difference between them and like the IEMagni, I think if it's just a real quick AB, it's kind of difficult too. You really gotta like concentrate and focus on like note decay and attack, and just like kind of like all these little nuances in between instruments and notes and things like that to really kind of understand the differences between them. But I think I kind of have this pared down after switching back and forth between all these for a few weeks here. So I want to compare first. I'm going to kind of compare the IEMagni to the Bifrost 2, because they are, I would say that the Bifrost, sorry, I'm saying Bifrost. So the Jotunheim 2 is kind of the next stage in Schiit's super clean, solid state amps. I think it sounds a lot like the IEMagni, just a little more refined. It's a bit wider, it's got better separation, it's maybe got a little bit more punch and dynamics to it, but all in all, it kind of keeps that same super clean, maybe just just uber clarity, but not harsh, okay? It can be like a bit sharp, but it's just so precise, okay? It's super precise. It's not harsh in the way that I felt like the THX stuff could kind of be harsh or dry. I don't feel like these are dry. They're not wet either, though. They're not like thick and wet. They're fast and precise, and that can be really pleasant, certainly. And I do think, again, that it is kind of the Jotunheim 2 is kind of the step up from the IEMagni. So if you have something like the Heresy or the IEMagni, or maybe even the Magnius, I don't have the Magnius anymore to AB, but I think any of those, the Jotunheim is going to be close to those, but maybe a little more refined, okay? Now, I will also say too that I did notice a difference between the 4-pin coming out of the Jotunheim 2 and the single-ended. I felt like out of the 4-pin, I felt like it was a little more of an exciting listen. I felt like it had a little more punch and dynamics, whereas out of the 1/4 inch, I felt like it was a bit softer and not quite as well defined. So I do think there's a bit of a difference there. Again, you're talking very minor differences, and it could be placebo too, to be perfectly honest with you. Jumping over to the G111, again, it's not a night and day. It's certainly not night and day when compared to the Bifrost 2. However, I did feel like it just had a bit more smoothness to it. I don't think it's not quite as wide or quite as punchy, but I thought that it resolved a little bit better between notes and instruments. I thought the decay on it felt a little more natural. I would say it's still tack sharp, but I would say, if we're thinking about like photography or videography, I make a lot of these analogies just because I'm into that too. To me, the Jotunheim 2 and kind of Schiit sound is like you've over sharpened an image just like a little bit. It's not that it's not pleasing. It brings some more details out, some finer details, but at the cost of losing kind of like a natural just crispness to it, where I feel like the G111 has that kind of natural, just fully resolved crispness without being over sharpened. I would say its dynamics are maybe a little bit less on the G111. I don't think it quite has quite as much low end punch as the Jotunheim 2 does. But all in all, I felt like, for me, I felt like the G111 was just a more refined sound and had a little more nuance to it than the Schiit amplifiers do. And so I think I'm still back and forth on, like, to be honest, I have Valhalla 2, which is, going to be coming up for review as well. And I'm just loving the Valhalla 2 to the point where I'm not sure that I really want to justify having like a $350 solid state on hand. In my head, I'm almost still wondering if the little IEMagni is just kind of enough if I want that kind of sound. So I'm going back and forth on that, right? So I haven't made any final decisions on exactly what I'm keeping as far as these amplifiers go. I am not keeping the Jotunheim 2 though. I am gonna go ahead and sell that, and I'll either stick with just the IEMagni or the G111. I should point out too, power. I mean, obviously the Jotunheim 2 has like a ginormous amount of power, right? It's like 7.5 watts or something at 16 ohms. Even still, I felt like the G111 and the IEMagni, like, they still have, quite a bit of power and more than you would need for 95% of headphones. I do have an HE6 SE V2 on hand right now, which is a notoriously difficult to drive headphone. I felt like both the G111 and the Jotunheim 2 drove it. I mean, I guess I don't know what it sounds like on like a high-end speaker amplifier, but I mean, I felt like they both drove it pretty well, and I preferred it on the G111. Well, I should preface this, okay? So how I liked the sound of the HE6 SEV2 most, and we'll have to talk about this more in the review of that, was the Valhalla as a preamp through the G111. If it was just straight to one of these two amplifiers, then I preferred the Bifrost 2 actually, because I felt like the G111 was a little bit sterile with it. So again, pairings matter with all this stuff. Your headphones matter, your DAC matters, all that stuff matters to come to kind of like a full picture of your sound. Kind of on that note too, I would say that I think like the Bifrost 2 has kind of some of that Schiit like sharpness to it, and that's why I think maybe I kind of like the G111 better, is because it takes that back a notch, whereas the Jotunheim 2 kind of adds to that, is maybe part of it. So I don't know, again, it's all stuff you just kind of have to try for yourself to really know what you're gonna prefer or not. And even then, there's different use cases where you might prefer one over the other, even just amongst the gear that you have. So again, no final conclusions made. The Jotunheim 2 is good. It's just I don't like it quite as much as the G111, and the G111, I'm not sure I can justify the cost over the IEMagni. So I don't know. It's all relative, right? It's all matters your budget, your other gear, and all that stuff. So that's what makes this fun and maybe a little bit cumbersome sometimes to go through some of this stuff. So yeah, all great amplifiers, all super clean amplifiers. If you're really budget tight, just get something like the IEMagni. I think you're gonna be just fine, and you're not missing out on that much. But if you got the extra money to spend, Jotunheim 2 is a continuation of that IEMagni sound, and the G111 is maybe just a little bit smoother, a little bit more nuanced, but they're all pretty close. So I hope that helps somewhat. I probably muddied the waters more than I cleared them up, but either way, I thank you for your time. If you have more comments, questions, alternative opinions, drop those down in the comments below. If you want more headphone content, feel free to subscribe and stick around a little bit. Take a look at some of my backlog stuff. I like I said, I'll link those other solid state reviews down below, and there's much more to come. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.